The significant burden of Alzheimer's disease and related dementias affecting people now and expected to increase in the coming decades, we need to undertake preventive measures to decrease the risk of onset of these dementias. One of the key factors identified in increasing dementia risk is poorly controlled hypertension. Improving cardiovascular health through better diet, exercise, and managing diabetes and hypertension are steps one can take to decrease one's personal risk of dementia in the future. However, there are many unanswered questions in this association. At the Cleveland Alzheimer's Disease Research Center, we have supported research that evaluates this risk, and we have ongoing studies that look into how these risk factors contribute to dementia and effective preventive strategies that one can undertake to overcome it. So these are exciting developments we look forward to here at the center.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar tonight on hypertension control and brain health. I'm going to give a minute or two for everyone to log in as we introduce tonight's program. So those of you who may be not logged in yet, of course, you wouldn't hear me if you're not logged in yet, but we'll give you 30 seconds or so for people to get acclimated and get their equipment up to speed. So we'll wait just a little bit. But once again, my name is Leon Bibb. For those of you who are there, you know me. I know you. We've worked for many years here in Cleveland in television news, and I'll be talking a little bit about that, but not much. And but we're just glad to have our guests on. I'm going to introduce our guests in just a second. So once again, we say hello to all of you, welcoming to our webinar on hypertension control and brain health. Welcome to our webinar during the last days of Black History Month this year, although Black History really is every month. I'm Leon Bibb. I work as senior essayist for WKYC 3 News in Cleveland. I'll be your host and moderator tonight for our fourth and final webinar in this fourth annual Black History Month webinar series. This year's program is sponsored by the Cleveland Alzheimer Research Center, called CADRC. This federally funded grant was awarded to the Cleveland Clinic, University Hospitals, Case Western Reserve University, the Louis Stokes VA, and Metro Health Medical Center, for all to work together as a research center without walls, as it is said, to study Alzheimer's disease as well as memory loss. The 4-part webinar series is now coming to a close. All webinars, by the way, are recorded, and links will be sent to our viewers following this webinar. Tonight's agenda will begin with a 5-minute celebratory presentation of African-American pioneers as we highlight accomplishments. After that, we will delve into the topic of the week with our panelists. There's going to be a question and answer session involving you, those in our audience. We wanted this to be interactive. If you got a question, please put the question into the chat. Our producer will take your question and get them to me for our panelists to answer. Our panelists tonight are Dr. Robert Richardson and Dr. Kristen George. More on them shortly, but first we bring to the microphone Gordon Williams, who will present this celebratory presentation for tonight's webinar. Good evening, Gordon. It's yours.
Good evening. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. This is a PowerPoint presentation, so I'm going to share my screen just so everybody can see the presentation for me. So just one moment, please.
And while Gordon is doing that, I will give you a little bit of background on Gordon. Gordon was raised in Cleveland, obtained his BA in psychology at Cleveland State University. He was first introduced to the field during his time in undergrad, working with Dr. Kenneth Vail, focusing on existential psychology research from 2014 to 2016. And from there, he was hired at University Hospitals in the Clinical Research Center as a clinical research coordinator. In 2018, finally settled in the Neurological Institute Clinical Trials Unit, focusing on stroke as well as brain health and memory, the department in which he currently is working. Gordon, it's yours again. Good evening, and it's yours, Gordon.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mr. Bibb. Good evening. Welcome to our final Black History presentation. Before I start, I'd definitely like to express my gratitude to everyone joining us today. I also want to express my gratitude to Lindsay Campbell and Susie Sammy for joining the planning committee and working to make all of this possible. And I really appreciate their help on working with my presentations over the last month, and I'm sure they're glad they don't have to edit anymore. With all that being said, we're going to get into today's final presentation. Today, we're presenting Dr. Jackson Wright Jr., Program Director for Clinical Hypertension at University Hospitals, which is exactly what today's webinar is going to be all about. So let's go ahead and just get started. So Dr. Wright was raised as the oldest of 4 children in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Wright gives credit to his interest in science to a chemistry set he received for Christmas during his childhood. When Wright went to Ohio Wesleyan University for undergrad, he originally majored in chemistry. However, a lecture from a pharmacologist got him interested in medical research. He ended up with his degree in animal biology and zoology, and afterwards, Dr. Wright obtained his MD and PhD in pharmacology from the University of Pittsburgh. Finally, his residency was completed at the University of Michigan. So Dr. Wright noticed that everyone in his family was suffering from hypertension and even took notice of his own increase in blood pressure during his time in school. This gave him an interest and motivation for studying the disease. For many years, physicians knew that hypertension was a little more common in African Americans than their Caucasian counterpoints, and Dr. Wright noticed during his time in med school that many of the studies that he did, it did not include any Black participants or were either small in number or opinion-based. He noticed that were very few controlled scientific studies, and I know some people might ask, why does diversity matter in regards to research studies? And the short answer to that is that it ensures the treatments and therapies that are developed will treat everyone of the widest range possible. So we thought that was very important. Next, I'll give you a quote from Dr. Wright during the summer of 2016. One of the objectives of mine has always been to obtain credible data in African American patients so we better understand why racial differences in health outcomes exist. Dr. Wright became an advocate for minority recruitment in hypertension studies and authored over 300 articles, abstracts, and book chapters. Following up on my insights for diversity in research, I'll briefly go over a couple of the studies conducted by Dr. Wright. In 1994, Dr. Wright, along with a group of other clinicians, conducted the All-Hat trial. And over the course of the 8-year study, it was found that a 10-cent diuretic, which are the medications used to promote urine output, would help best with the prevention of cardiovascular disease compared to a $70 a month ACE inhibitor and alpha blocker, which are a class of medication that blocks a hormone that constricts blood vessels. 35% of those 42,000 patients were of African American descent, and Dr. Wright presented a paper breaking the results down by race. This was the largest study of its kind. The SPRINT study, also conducted by Dr. Wright, found that targeting systolic blood pressure, which is the number on the top of your blood pressure reading, of less than 120 compared to 140, resulted in lower rates of cardiovascular events. This study also featured a participant population of over 9,000, with 30% of them being African American. Dr. Wright's advocacy for Black participants and representation contributed to these findings. And lastly, highlighting his career, Dr. Wright, once again, as I mentioned, authored more than 300 articles, abstracts, book chapters. He co-chaired the treatment section for the 7th National Joint Committee of Prevention, Detection, Evaluation, and Treatment of High Blood Pressure. This committee is responsible for outlining the best practices for treating hypertension. He has also served on a panel that generated the 2014 United States Hypertension Guideline Report. He was also finally awarded the 2017 Pavorka Prize from Case Western Reserve University, and this prize recognizes any active faculty member whose exceptional achievements in teaching, research, and scholarly service have benefited the community, the nation, and the world. Lastly, these are just some of the sources that I utilized for today's presentation. And lastly, this is just my contact information for anyone that has any questions, comments, or concerns. Once again, thank you all so much for your time and for joining us this evening. And I'm going to go ahead and hand this off to Mr. Bibb. Thank you so much.
Oh, many thanks, Gordon Williams. We appreciate that. And I should add that Dr. Jack Wright, or as we call him, Jackson, is one of my favorite people in all the world. We are very, very close, spending a lot of time socially and professionally together, but he truly is an American hero and one of my best friends in all the world. We've been friends for many, many years now, Dr. Jackson Wright.
I'm glad I picked him.
Yeah, I'm glad you picked him too, and I'm certain Jack is glad you picked him too. Speaking highly of him, in fact, I was thinking about Dr. Jackson Wright as I was on my way here to do this webinar because he lives not too far from here, and I looked up to his home where he lives and wondered, Jack, are you home or are you out and about tonight? He may be on the webinar. That would be nice.
Yeah, send it to him.
Yeah,
Send it to him.
that'd be wonderful. But Dr. Jackson Wright, thank you so much, Gordon Williams.
No
Let
problem.
me introduce our panel tonight. Our topic tonight is hypertension control and brain health, and our guests are Dr. Kristen George and Dr. Robert Richardson. Let me give you a little background information on both, if I could. Dr. Kristen George is an assistant professor of epidemiology at the Department of Public Health Sciences at the University of California, Davis School of Medicine. Her research assesses life course vascular contributions to dementia and cognitive aging, with a particular focus on health and the aging of Black older people. She is also interested in how structural and social determinants of health influence cardiovascular risk factors over the lifespan, leading to racial disparities in dementia. Dr. Kristen George. Also with us this evening is Dr. Robert Richardson, award-winning general adult neurologist, medical educator, and electromyographer with nearly 25 years of practice experience in medical leadership. He is senior attending physician at University Hospitals in Cleveland, a clinical assistant professor of medicine and neurology at Case Western Reserve University, and clinical associate professor at Ohio University. After attending high school in Germany, he completed his undergrad education at Stanford University and medical school at Case Western. This was followed by an internal medicine internship at Mount Sinai of Cleveland, neurology residency at University Hospitals of Cleveland, Case Western Reserve, and electromyography fellowship at Case Western Reserve. Upon completing fellowship, he practiced independently in Cleveland for nearly 2 decades before returning to University Hospitals. During that time, he led successful efforts at multiple hospitals for certifications, then multiple recertifications from JCAHO as primary stroke centers. And he speaks on stroke, multiple sclerosis, and neurological topics in Cleveland's African American community because he believes knowledge improves access to medical care. Dr. Robert Richardson, MD, and by the way, Dr. Kristen George is PhD. Good to have the two doctors in the house. Good to have you both here. Let's begin. Why don't we begin at the basics? I think that's a good place to begin. What is hypertension and why is it important to control hypertension? And Dr. Kristen, you want to take that one?
Sure. So hypertension is just another way of saying high blood pressure. Typically, if you're measuring your blood pressure, the systolic or the higher number of 140 or more, or the diastolic 90 of 90 or more is considered hypertension or high blood pressure. And it's really important to control because having high blood pressure over a long period of time, especially if it's like extremely high, like 180 or higher, can really increase your risk of cardiovascular disease, like a heart attack or a stroke. And also, we're learning now that it increases your risk of dementia.
Well, great. This certainly affects Black people. We hear that all the time. The question is, Dr. Richardson, why does hypertension affect the African American community at a higher rate? And what are the factors that contribute to this disparity?
Well, thank you for asking that question. That's an excellent question. The largest factor is almost certainly heredity, as we are finding, and I can offer my own family as an example. Both my parents are hypertensive. I am hypertensive, and in fact, I personally benefited from Dr. Wright's work. I've been on a diuretic myself for blood pressure control for better than 10 years, and I'm so far doing okay. We'll see. But that's probably the largest factor. Other factors, given that we are all Americans and eat an American diet, include our dietary choices, fried foods, fried foods, high cholesterol foods, etc. All that sort of diet is likelier to lead to hypertension being expressed. So just those two large factors can increase the amount of hypertension in our community.
So both doctors, if we were to change our diets, we would be better off if we stayed away from a lot of fried foods and foods that were high in fat. Would that be correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, tell me about that, Dr. Kristen George. By the way, you're on the West Coast, so we see sunshine coming in your window. We wish we
Yes.
were there in the Cleveland area.
Yeah,
Tell me about tell me about how that could affect our lives in a positive way were we to change our diets. What happens with fast foods and high fatty foods and fried foods? What does that do to us?
Well, a lot of the food that we really love is really high in things like salt. And consuming a lot of salt can increase your blood pressure. There's also, if it has a lot of sugar, that can increase your blood glucose. And we see that people with hypertension are more likely to be diabetic and they're more likely to have high cholesterol. So there's this other cluster of conditions that can kind of come together and really cause poor outcomes. And so I think when we're talking about diets, you know, everyone wants to enjoy their meals, especially Black people. We want things to taste good and be seasoned. So I think it's helpful to think about, if you're a cook, maybe reducing the amount of salt little by little over a period of time instead of trying to just, eat something that you think is healthy but might not enjoy, but really kind of reducing the salt and the sugar and the fat slowly over time so that you kind of can still enjoy your meals, but are starting to get towards something that's a little bit healthier.
So many of the foods that we buy in the grocery stores do have a high amount of salt in them. So we really have to read the labels when we buy products?
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
So from the Amen Corner came a quick yes there from Dr. Robert Richardson. Tell me about that, about the label reading and our food companies trying to take the salt out, or are they trying to put the salt in?
No, that's a great question. That is a great question. Well, you know what? Being able to read your food food labels can, it has a big change. It can cause big changes in your life. I mean, you'd be shocked what you find salt in. By the way, if a lot of manufacturers will hide the name salt. They'll name it. They'll give it its scientific name, sodium chloride, right? Because they know people may not understand that term as readily as salt.
Yeah, right.
Just so you know that it's okay to take in some salt, but too much salt, which you can judge generally by how high on the ingredients list it is, can really help you to decide what to eat and how to eat it.
Words of wisdom, huh? Yeah.
Well, and the other thing to realize, you decide how much salt you're going to put in the food that you cook. And so we have some responsibility in deciding how much salt, how much fat we take in. So it's more than reading labels. It's recognizing what changes you can make to your diet to reduce salt and fat intake.
Dr. Kristen George, we took the salt in my home. We took the salt off the table decades ago. We don't even have it
Right.
on the table. I mean, it's in the cabinet. We every once in a while I bend the rule a little bit and salt down a little bit of popcorn, but not much. But I get too much salt probably by the processed foods. Dr. George, let me ask you, how does cardiovascular health throughout your life affect the risk of developing Alzheimer's disease? These two are related, aren't they?
They are. So a lot of the things that we know are good for your heart, like controlling your blood pressure, staying at a healthy weight, controlling blood cholesterol are also good for your brain. And so I've done work on hypertension, looking at hypertension across different age groups. So it included young adults who were in their early 20s, late teens, adults who were in their 40s, and then kind of middle-aged adults. And we saw that having high blood pressure at any of those time points was associated with worse cognitive function when they were 65 and older. So it's really this important at all life stages. We kind of think of it as something to consider when we're in middle age or older, but it's really something we should be thinking about when we're young adults. And I know many of us have passed that stage, so it's not hopeless. I mean, I think making these changes now is always better in the long run.
In other words, it's never too late.
Right.
Yeah, okay. All right. And I will tell our audience, by the way, if you've got questions out there in the audience, please write your questions into the chat. And my producers here, Susie Sammy and Lindsay Powell, will be taking your questions from the chat, and they'll get them over to me, and we'll get them to our experts right here. Dr. George, tell me about the stroke belt. What is the stroke belt?
Sure. So that's this region of the South. We call it the South, but it's the southeastern US, where we see really high rates of stroke and cardiovascular disease. And we're also seeing a lot higher rates of dementia. And so these high rates are, if we're comparing Black adults that live in the stroke belt compared to other parts of the United States, like Black adults in California, those in the stroke belt have this higher risk of dementia. And even those who move away from the stroke belt, so maybe they were born there but moved to other parts of the country, they still have this elevated risk for cardiovascular disease and dementia. And I think it's really important because given the historical context, in the 19th century, most Black people, I think 90% at one point, lived in this region. And then during the Great Migration, they started to move out to other parts of the US. So a lot of baby boomers who are now kind of at risk, high risk of cardiovascular disease and dementia, have this history. So it's important that we kind of understand that they're at this higher risk and start to figure out what about this region, which I suspect a lot of it is racism and kind of this, we call it like epigenetics, this like transferred trauma from one group, one generation to the next. It kind of increases risk for disease.
Yeah, well, I want to get to that trend, that generational trauma. I want to get to that in just a second. But once again, where is the stroke belt geographically? Where is it?
So it's the southeastern US. It includes states like Mississippi, Alabama, Arkansas, parts of Texas, Tennessee, Kentucky, the Carolinas.
Mm-hmm.
Really this area that we colloquially call the South.
The South. The South. And a lot of times when we move from the South, we may have been eating Southern, but when we move north or west or wherever, we bring those same habits, those same cultural or eating habits with us. So the stroke belt can be anywhere. You mentioned generational trauma. I've got a question here from one of our viewers who is asking, is there any validity to hypertension being prevalent in the Black community due to generational trauma or life experiences, living experiences?
So absolutely. I mean, just thinking about the Great Migration, that was one of the largest movements of people in world history. But we often don't really think about it like that because these people weren't crossing international borders. So it's not kind of recognized for what it is. But that's incredibly traumatic. And so that stress, we know that it can change your genetics and you can pass that on to your children. And that stress can also harm your health. And so if we're thinking about like maternal and child health, if the mom is really stressed, we know that has an impact on the health of the child and from birth through late life. So there are all these different mechanisms that can cause trauma to be generational.
Yeah. Dr. Richardson, take a piece of that if you would. I mean, we're living at a time when a lot of people, for political reasons, are feeling they are under stress. Does that have an impact on hypertension? Could that have an impact on it developing into Alzheimer's or other dementia?
Um, Definitely. And I mean, so it's a bit complicated, but um, in addition to the hereditary background of hypertension at its baseline, um, the environment in which people live can also make high blood pressure more likely. I mean, living a life with significant stress makes it more likely for high blood pressure to appear. Even if you're prescribed medication, people who are under this sort of stress may be less likely to be compliant with taking their medication regimen. Um, among other things. Um, so the bottom line, the answer is definitely yes.
So how do we fight that? I mean, the atmosphere can be filled with problems that are hard to escape. All you need to do is turn on the news, and you may be feeling down. How do you handle that when it's all around you?
Well, all you my most common advice in the office is to control the things that you can control. So you measure your own blood pressure, or you go to the store and you go to one of those blood pressure machines, and you find your blood pressure is high. What do you do? What do you do about that? You may not have control over some of the stresses, the external stresses in your life, but you do have control over what you do with your own body. And in that regard, you can try to control blood pressure by seeing your primary care doctor. If oh, and by the way, if you have one, there's a genuine concern of access to healthcare in our community at the most basic. How long, do you have the insurance to go to a physician in the first place? If you don't, where are there places where you can see a physician for low cost or no cost? And those things do exist here in the Cleveland area. Thankfully, we are blessed with many resources.
Those same resources, I hope, are on the West Coast, Dr. Kristen George, the same kind of resources that Dr. Richardson's talking about in the greater Cleveland area. Do you have them on the West Coast and other places?
We do, we definitely do, but I think they can be hard to find and hard for people to get to, not necessarily in their communities.
That in itself creates stress sometimes, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Just trying
definitely.
to find something. So we have to find ways to perhaps calm ourselves down. I tell people all the time, although I'm in the news business, because of the news can be so stressful at times. I tell people oftentimes, well, sometimes you just have to turn it off. You don't have to look at it 24 hours, 24/7. I even turn it off. I get up in the morning and I try to just ease into the news by just not looking at anything for a while and kind of ease into what happened last night. Let's talk a little bit about monitoring your own blood pressure. Dr. Kristen George, is that easily done for those who may be watching and have never monitored their own blood pressure? Is that an easy process?
Yes.
I think it can be easy, yes. As Dr. Richardson mentioned, pharmacies have blood pressure cuffs that you can use to measure your blood pressure. There's some relatively inexpensive cuffs you can buy for home. And I think it's just a matter of picking a time of day, typically when it's quieter and you haven't just eaten a meal or had something to drink, where you can, sit for 5 minutes, try to relax, and then take your blood pressure and then maybe write it down with the date and just keep track of kind of what that number is over time. Because sometimes the blood pressure that we get if we do go to the doctor is not as accurate as it could be. We call that white coat hypertension just because you're in this sterile, cold place. You might have rushed there to get to your appointment on time, and so you're just not relaxed. So I think it's really important to try to monitor your blood pressure if you can.
Now, I'd like to add to that if I can. Your blood pressure naturally fluctuates during the day, and so and my standard advice is to use as best possible use the same machine to take your blood pressure at around the same time of day. And if you're on medication, ideally that time should be somewhat distant from when you take your medication. Say 6 hours after you take your medication, as an example. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter when you do it. Just pick a time, stick to it, and it's 100% true. White coat hypertension is a real thing. My approach to that in the office is, my staff always checks the blood pressure right before I come in. After I've spent my 15 minutes for a follow-up patient, or 45 minutes for a new patient with the patient, if their blood pressure was initially high, I will recheck it, because generally by the end of the visit we're just talking.
I understand.
We're just talking, and I'm doing the best I can to relax people.
Well, that's good.
That's possible when you're wearing a white coat.
And we appreciate the advice, because the doctor's in the house tonight, and we're getting this this good advice. Both doctors, the name of this program tonight is Hypertension Control and Brain Health. Let's speak a little bit. Let's speak a lot to that. Dr. Kristen George, give me your thoughts on hypertension control and brain health. Draw that line from one to the other on why it's important for us to even be talking about this subject.
So going back to kind of the definition of hypertension is that the cause of hypertension is this constriction of blood vessels. Like, your blood vessels are not relaxing. And so there's this high pressure that we're measuring. And that can damage blood vessels over time, because they're in this constant high pressure, tense environment. And you have all these delicate blood vessels in your brain that are also, having to deal with that high pressure. We also know that part of how your brain functions, how your brain kind of rejuvenates during sleep, is that it brings nutrients, but also gets rid of used proteins and kind of the trash that we collect over the day. And so if your blood vessel health in your brain is not very good, you're not going to be able to clear out that trash. And so we think that kind of contributes to Alzheimer's disease and related dementias, where there is this vascular component to them. And so part of managing blood pressure is trying to make sure the whole system is working from your brain down to your feet.
Okay.
And I'd like to add a bit to that as well. People with high blood pressure are more likely to have what we call in the business white matter disease. The white matter is the part of the brain that's underneath the surface. The surface is gray matter. The white matter contains the tracks that the nerves take between the gray matter and your spinal cord and the rest of your body. People who have high blood pressure are very susceptible to developing very small strokes, and those small strokes we call white matter disease. Many of those strokes actually most of them are in areas where you may not notice a difference. You may not notice a difference in your thinking or your movement or your balance, etc. And so if you have brain imaging, a CAT scan or MRI of the brain, you may see all this white matter disease, and you haven't had any symptoms. People who have that white matter disease are more likely to have larger strokes that you would notice, are more likely to have memory problems that go along with it. That's the vascular component that Dr. George was talking about. And it's really clear that they call hypertension the silent killer, in part because of things like this. You often don't notice the end organ damage until it's almost too late.
Yeah, you mentioned memory a few seconds ago. On television, we see commercials for medical pharmaceuticals that supposedly improve our memory. What do you think about these? And I get both of you to respond to this. What do you think about these drugs that supposedly improve memory? Oh, I'm getting a thumbs down.
Yeah, it's a waste of money. Waste of money. All those ads for Prevagen. I mean, that's why the stuff costs so much. It costs so much money because they need that money to market the stuff so that you buy it. None of this is truly proven to work scientifically for preventing memory loss. You are better off controlling your blood pressure, controlling your blood sugar, exercising, and eating healthy in order to try to mitigate the hereditary factors that can lead to Alzheimer's disease and other dementias.
Dr. George,
everybody wants a magic pill. There isn't one.
There is no magic pill, says Dr. Robert Richardson. Dr. Christian George, what say you on these commercials that we see that are all over television, especially during the evening hours?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I don't know that I see the same commercials here in California, so I'm not sure exactly what drugs they are, but there are no drugs on the market that are going to give you back the cognitive function that you've already lost, which is why prevention is so important.
Let's talk a little bit about exercise, Dr. Christian George. The other day, I try to get to the gym a couple of times a week, at least a couple of times a week, and work out. I always feel a lot better after I work out at the gym, and then maybe sit in the whirlpool for a couple of minutes or so and relax my body, but get some exercise. Am I doing the right thing to help myself, help my brain, and help my heart and the vessels in my heart? Am I doing the right thing?
Absolutely. So they recommend about 150 minutes of moderate exercise a week, which is about 20 minutes a day. And so I think that is very doable. You don't have to have a workout session. You can break it up through the day, like taking a little walk for 5 minutes a few times a day. But we know that if people increase their physical activity, we would actually prevent about 10% of dementia cases. And it really doesn't have to be something, you don't need to go out and run a marathon or something. You can really just do as much as you're comfortable doing. And over time, I think as you said, it makes you feel good. And as your fitness improves, you can add more things to your routine. But as long as it's fun, I think that's the thing that you have to try to find something that you can move around and it's fun for you so that you'll keep doing it.
Well, it's always fun for me because I put my earphones on and I listen to good music, or I listen to a story, or I listen to an audio book or something while I'm walking in the gym,
Yeah.
back and forth, but getting my steps in. Dr. Richardson, let's talk a little bit about what information would you suggest to patients that they discuss with their doctors? And by the way, before you answer that, for our audience, we're still taking your questions. And if you would just write them in the chat, our producers will be able to get them to me, and we will be able to ask our panelists about that, about your question in the chat. But Dr. Richardson, talk to me about what information should patients begin discussing with their doctors. Should they open up that discussion, or should they wait for the doctor to bring it?
Oh my goodness. You know what? I am always running late in my office, because people ask me questions. And you know what? That's the ideal way. That's the ideal way to do it. What I tell my patients is, if you have questions, write them down before you go to the office, because unfortunately, the reality is we only have a limited amount of time to spend with people. You know, it may be 15 minutes, it may be 10 minutes in some offices. And so you really need to ask high impact questions. Probably the most important questions you can ask are, Doc, why are you putting me on this medication? Explain what this medication is supposed to do for me. And by the way, please explain it as simply as you can.
You use English, use regular English.
Use regular English. Why am I on this medication? And you know what? My blood pressure is pretty good. I'm on this medication. Do I have to continue taking this medication? The answer is usually yes, by the way. Even if you're feeling good, you need to be on your blood pressure medication. So why am I taking this medication? What does it do? Please explain my condition. Please explain what I have as simply as you can. Okay, so what is high blood pressure? What does high blood pressure mean for me? Why do I care? Why do I care about lowering my blood pressure? Why do I have to quit smoking? Those questions are important. How can I improve? How do I improve my diet? And actually, there's a little controversy about that lately because the fact is, docs get not that much education about nutrition in medical school, which is really interesting. I mean, there are some medical schools that have introduced specific curricula for nutrition and how to manage it, but that's nevertheless, that's an important question for you to ask your doctor.
Okay.
So
yeah.
What's my condition? Why am I taking this medication? What are the side effects to this medication? What do I look out for?
Speaking of dietary, Dr. Kristen George, give us an idea of what should be in the diet. Now we know the fatty foods and the fried stuff and the fast foods and all of that. We should kind of wean ourselves off of that as much as possible. What should be in the diet? What would be good for us?
So we typically recommend a Mediterranean diet. There's also a slight variation of the Mediterranean diet that is called the MIND diet that's been shown to be particularly good for Alzheimer's disease and related dementias. But it's basically you just want to increase your intake of fresh fruits and vegetables, maybe some nuts, using like things like olive oil instead of a lot of butters or fats. And one recommendation is a glass of wine a day, but I won't recommend that.
Oh, you're reading my mind. You're reading my mind because I was going there. Keep going.
That's not so great for the brain. But I think really focusing on the fresh fruits and vegetables, and even if you use some like canned vegetables, if you rinse them off, you can get rid of some of the salt before you cook them. And that can be a way to kind of use what you normally use, but make it a little bit healthier. And like I said before, I think trying to modify the things you already eat is sometimes easier than trying to adopt something like a Mediterranean diet that might be totally foreign and hard to stick to.
And expensive, by the way.
Yes.
Inexpensive. Okay. I've got a question here from one of our viewers who's asking, Dr. Kristen George, if you can take this. What are holistic practices to lower blood pressure?
Yeah. So what we've talked about, I think exercise is something that is holistic. It can get you outside. Also, with the diet and trying to eat fresh fruits and vegetables, I don't think you need to worry about whether it's organic or not or something like that, but just whole fruits and vegetables, nuts, and really trying to de-stress as much as possible. I know that's easier said than done. And trying to get good sleep. So especially as you age, getting good sleep is really, really important for your cognitive function. I know with my mom and grandmothers, like when they didn't sleep well, I could tell they were grumpy, but also they just weren't as sharp as usual. So just trying to get good sleep, having good sleep hygiene, so not watching TV before you go to bed, having a quiet, dark room, that sort of thing.
Yeah, that was good. When I go in the gym to work out, I mean, I work out by myself or with a group of other folks, and I always kind of de-stresses me, and I'm able to face, as I tell my wife and tell those around me, I'm able to face the world again. We've got another question here from a viewer. If you have high blood pressure, should you ask for a referral to a nutritionist? What do you think about that? Either one of you can take that, or both of you. If you have high blood pressure, should you ask for a referral to a nutritionist?
Yes. Yes. Nutritionist is currently the specialist best able to guide you to an appropriate diet that will help with your help to control your blood pressure, or to keep you healthy in general.
I'm on high blood pressure medicine right now. I mean, I've been taking it for a few years. It runs in my family. Both my parents had high blood pressure, but it's controlled, and usually I have a very good number when I go into the doctor's office, and we take a reading. Question is, Dr. Christian George, how long should I be taking this medicine? Is this a lifelong thing I've got to do?
Oh, absolutely. You should take it forever. And also, even if you are prescribed the medication, you should be monitoring your blood pressure. There's some people who maybe don't respond to certain medications, and so they might still have high blood pressure. So just making sure that you're keeping track so that if you notice your blood pressure ticking up, you can talk to your doctor about maybe some changes that might need to happen.
Or ticking down, by the way. I give you the example of my own mother. My mother was for a while on 4 medications for her blood pressure, and it was necessary at the time. But over time, her blood pressure started to slip lower and lower and lower, and she eventually had to she talked to her doctor. Well, she talked to me first, and I told her to go talk to her doctor. Ultimately, she was able to get rid of two of her medications, and now she's only on 2 medications, and her blood pressure is wonderful.
Well, good. Dr. Richardson, I got in my closet the other day and tried to put on a pair of pants, and I realized that somebody is shrinking my pants on me.
Join the club.
Yeah. What if I could lose a few pounds, would that help me in this regard?
Yes. And I can use myself as an example of that. When I was diagnosed with high blood pressure in my 40s, I did not initially go on medication. I mean, okay, I was being young and dumb. Okay. But what I did do was to start exercising on a daily basis. Doing 30 minutes of aerobic exercise for me, and changing my diet caused me to lose 30 pounds, and it did, while it did lower my blood pressure significantly. I mean, it lowered my top number really significantly, but I still needed to go on medication to finish the job.
I
So
understand.
absolutely, weight loss does help, but it doesn't get around your genetics. Doesn't get around your basic genetics.
Dr. George, another viewer here has written in, can high blood pressure lead to a brain aneurysm, especially if medication is not taken, is the question.
So I think Dr. Richardson is probably more suited to answer this question than I am, but I would say yes, especially at very high levels. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. Speak to that, Dr. Richardson. High blood pressure leading to brain aneurysm if medication not taken?
Yes. And the most important risk factor for a brain aneurysm, other than genetics, which is the number 1 risk factor for aneurysm. Number 1 risk factor is aneurysm, because the higher your blood pressure is, the higher the risk for parts of the walls of your blood vessels to become weak, which is what an aneurysm is. An aneurysm is a place where the wall of the blood vessel has become weak and thin. And if the blood pressure stays high enough for long enough, the aneurysm can rupture.
Yeah.
So,
Dr. George, we're talking about, the lifestyle here in America. Uh, Take a shot at this, or either one of you, certainly try this on. Are there places in the world where incidences of high blood pressure are lower because of lifestyle or because of dietary considerations?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, even in the United States, when we're thinking back to the stroke belt, that's an area where we see people have higher rates of obesity than the rest of the US. They have more processed foods in their diets, less physical activity, and we see that they have high rates of hypertension and stroke, even just comparing to, like, say, California. And I think our environment plays a huge role in that. I'm sure it's much easier to get out and get fresh fruits and vegetables when, like me, I live in like the Central Valley, the most of our food is coming from, a few miles away.
Yeah.
It's sunny and warm all the time. So it's easier in a place like this than maybe in the South where it gets hot and humid, or the Midwest or Ohio where it's cold. So
Yeah, we hear of some of these locations around the world where people are living well into their 90s and into their hundreds. Uh, what do you think helps them do that?
So we know that their diets for sure. They have not necessarily a Mediterranean diet, but often diets that are very similar, where they have a lot of fresh fruits and vegetables, some fish, fish, nuts, that sort of thing. There's typically low or no drinking alcohol, um, and also having social support is really important in a lot of those communities. So
Mhm.
having, a big family or friend network that you can rely on really makes a big difference in terms of your health and their health.
Okay, we've got about 8 minutes remaining in this hypertension webinar, hypertension control and brain health. I've got another question here from a viewer who says, "What age should you start thinking about hypertension control? Is this something younger people should be worried about?"
yes, absolutely. Especially if you're if it runs in your family. I have young patients in my office in their 20s and 30s with high blood pressure. I mean, generally as a neurologist, I'm seeing them for something else, but we see how high their blood pressure is. Um, and so absolutely, people should start paying attention to their blood pressure when they are younger. The longer you can prevent end organ disease, things like stroke, heart attack, um, um, blood vessel disease, etc. The longer you can prevent that stuff, the better.
What about people who've already had cognitive decline? One of my questions here, is it too late to tackle hypertension control? Is it too late?
It
Never
is
too late, says Doc.
never too late. Even if you've already had a stroke, it's not too late, because we have really good data that indicates that controlling your blood pressure after a stroke reduces the risk for another stroke.
Mhm.
Never too
Doctor,
late.
yeah, Dr. Christian George, we're going to make you uh, in charge of the whole world for the next couple of
Oh,
minutes or
all
so.
right.
I mean, you can wave
Oh,
your magic wand and everything would be right. If you could do that, if you had that power regarding the things that we're talking about today, what would you do? What would be your power? What would you suggest that we in the world do to control ourselves if you've got the power to make that happen?
So I think I would have regulations about how much salt can be in any food that you buy at the grocery store. So eliminate the need for people to be looking at labels, looking for salt or sodium chloride or trying to figure that out, but really taking out a lot of the salt that is in the foods that they already buy. It'll be hard at first, but I think everyone will get used to it and be able to enjoy the flavors a bit more without worrying about hypertension risk and without contributing to their poor
Mhm.
long-term health.
What about you, Dr. Richardson? You're in charge of the world for the next couple of minutes or so. What say you about what we
Ooh.
should do?
Man. Uh, Politicians aren't going to like what I have to say.
Well, it's a whole
Health,
lot of things politicians don't like her.
healthcare for everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, remove the barriers to access, because a big problem in our community is getting to the doctor, finding someone who will take your insurance or no insurance, finding a way to pay for medication, finding somebody competent enough to talk about diet. So yeah, healthcare for everybody, healthcare for everybody, and an emphasis on, frankly, what the Europeans and the Japanese already do. Portion sizes are small, and they control to a large extent how much salt, how much fat, what kind of dyes go into their foods. And in our country, the big food companies, the big food companies have a large influence on our government, not being able to control those items in our food.
So if we could go into a restaurant and not have, if you get French fries, we don't need this many French fries.
Yeah, that's how it happens in Europe. I mean, if you travel to Paris and you get a Big Mac and fries, it's going to be smaller than what you get in the United States.
Right. I've got another question, and we're going to send this one over to Dr. Christian George. Somebody has written in, how would you encourage someone to see a doctor about their hypertension if they don't trust doctors?
That's really tough.
That's hard.
What would you say?
Oh, go ahead.
What would you say to them?
I think I would start off saying how much I care about them and how much I want them to be healthy and be around for as long as possible. And so part of me wanting them to go to the doctor is because I love them so much and care about them so much. And also, maybe go with them, offer to, sit with them in their appointment if that would make them feel more comfortable. Sometimes there are kind of, as we were talking about, clinics that serve kind of underserved populations, and so they might have a little bit more cultural awareness, and so maybe trying to find a physician or a clinic like that might make them feel a little bit more comfortable if that's something that could be done for them, but really just trying to offer to go with them and support them and help them find the right physician.
Yeah, use a little bedside manner to get them to go into the doctor's office to see a doctor like Robert Richardson, and when he comes in with the white coat. Doc, how do you calm your patients down? What do you tell them when you can kind of notice that they're nervous about what you may have to tell them?
I talk to my patients about their life. I mean, my regular patients, the patients I've had for a long time, a lot of them they're just like family to us. So they bring us pictures of their grandbaby. They bring their kid to the office. We actually don't mind kids in the office because we like kids. That's you do the best you can to understand the person that you're with.
Okay. Well, we are, as the baseball announcers say, we're rounding third base and we're bringing it home. And I want to start with you, Dr. Robert Richardson. Give us a final thought on everything that we've been talking about. Take about 35, 40 seconds or so. Give us a final thought on why what we're talking about is so vitally important.
Well, first of all, as I said earlier, you can only control what you can control. Think about things that you can control and control that. Controlling blood pressure, controlling diabetes, controlling your cholesterol. Those things keep you away from me. You do not want to come to the ED at Ahuja or at the UH main campus and be looking up at my face. So those are I don't want you to need me. That's why I'm here.
And that can lead to better brain health along the way, not only the heart and the vascular system, but better brain health
In
because
general, yes,
it's all tied together.
it's all tied together.
Dr. Kristen George, there on the West Coast, bring us home. Give us a final thought.
I would say, I think, you know, Black people experience hypertension at higher rates, experience dementia at higher rates. And it's important for us to remember that part of this is because being Black in America is stressful. And we can't, feel like we failed if we develop hypertension or something like that. But there are these ways through diet, exercise, seeing a doctor regularly if we can, that can really help us live longer and have a better quality of life. And I think that's really important because, it's important that we stay here as long as possible and make the world a better place. So I think really focusing on what the things that we can do, despite maybe the circumstances, is the best we can do.
I will say amen to that. Well, that's going to wrap up tonight's webinar as we conclude our fourth annual Black History Month webinar series. Certainly, I want to thank our panelists, Dr. Robert Richardson and Dr. Kristen George. We thank them for their expertise and for their willingness to be on this broadcast with us, this webinar with us. We also thank our planning committee, Lindsay Campbell, Susie Sammy, and Gordon Williams. They've all been vital to what we do here. By the way, you in the audience, you'll receive an email which will include the link to a resource packet for the series and the recording to all 4 of the webinar sessions. Also, a feedback survey. We encourage you to fill out that feedback survey, even if you're watching this session from the recording. Your feedback is important to us. The producer of the series has been Susie Sammy, who's helped me immensely in keeping us together in the webinar, along with Lindsay Campbell. They have kept our questions coming, and they've kept us on time, and they've kept me in the middle of where I should be on this webinar. And of course, we thank again our 2 panelists, Dr. Robert Richardson, Dr. Kristen George, and we thank our audience. You make it possible for us to be here, and we are here for you. We plan to do this again, by the way, next year. I'm Leon Bibb. Good luck and be well, and we'll talk again.